We continue our story on Regulon 4. The Decepticons are just about ready to, I guess you could say, kind of leave, as they just dug out Monstructor fully. However, Arachnid halts their operations and states that they won't be taking Monstructor with them. And keep in mind, Monstructor still offline and is still kind of like, on. He's in like a stasis lock, if you will. So it's kind of like, what do you mean we're not leaving just yet? And so Knockout is like, what do you mean we're not leaving just yet, Commander Arachnid? Surely you would have us resurrect Monstructor, right? And she says, no, we're not doing that at all. And this is where the Decepticons, Knockout and Breakdown, kind of look at each other, all confused. And so Arachnid simply walks on top of Monstructor, takes out all 4 of her sharp claws, and tears out his spark. And Knockout is in absolute shock and disbelief, wondering, what the heck are you doing? To which Arachnid simply holds the spark of Monstructor and simply states we'll be using his parts to repair Lord Megatron. Right now, the Autobots have beasts of unimaginable power, and we're going to use Monstructor to make our Lord into something that can manhandle these beasts. So, believe it or not, get to work. And so, the Viacons, without any hesitation really, actually just go ahead and start dismantling Monstructor part by part, while Arachnid walks right back into the warship and goes into Megatron's chamber, where obviously he is still recovering from the poison, the burns, and the electrocution, plus some of Seragio's spikes and Tiger Rex's mauling. Yeah, she says, soon, my lord, you will be brought back online. And this is where we would head back to the Autobot base. And, well, we see Team Prime kind of just lollygagging a little bit. Keep in mind, most of the episodes are pretty much averted, such as, Crossfire, and Nemesis Prime still does go as canon. But now it's time for the relic hunt. And, well, also, Loose Cannons is also averted in this timeline, as I'm going to have something different for it. And so, this is where Rathalos Primal acts as Optimus, so the Decepticons seem to have left Earth, right? Yes, that is seemingly to be the case here. We do not have any Decepticons. And this is where Rathalos Primal simply asks, okay, so why don't we just go ahead and jump on this relic hunt right now? No one's here that's actually a threat. To which Optimus thinks, and is like, yeah, you have a point there. So Optimus actually begins to devise teams to go ahead and get the relics. However, this is where RC notes something. Wait, what about Starscream? He's still here, isn't he? What if he has something, or is trying to get the relics himself? And this is where Ludicrous simply states, it's only one Decepticon. We could definitely handle this, no problem. I mean, it's 10 of us against 1 of him. What could possibly go wrong? And this is where Rathalos Primal says, my friend, you have a very good optimistic spirit. But let's not jinx ourselves, shall we? To which Ludicrous and him both laugh at each other. But this is where everyone divides and goes ahead and gets the relics. So now let's talk about tunnel vision. This happens just like it does in canon. RC and Bumblebee actually go to get the phase shifter along with Miko and Jack. Now we are cutting out the whole Vogel thing because, again, he's not really essential to the plot at all. And yeah, they both go and, well, they go ahead to retrieve the relic, but this is where they hear digging, almost frantically, I might add. And, well, this is where they all peer around the corner and see Aelos burrowing, and digging out the relic. And he's trying to figure out, what the heck is this? It's interesting, but what the heck is it? And so Miko is like, oh, cool. Takes out her phone and takes a picture, and the flash goes off, and she's like, oops. And this is where Aelos simply turns around and roars at them. This is where they actually begin to, well, fight it out here. Thanks a lot, Miko. You now just incited the crash out of the Fated Four. And so RC and Bumblebee both open fire, but Aelos is not only moving erratically, but he's fast, he's strong. It's like fighting a bloodthirsty or more bloodthirsty Seragios with Tiger Rex's ferocity. And so the two of them get overwhelmed very quickly. And this is where Bumblebee actually manages to land a shot on Aelos. However, this doesn't do anything but to piss him off, and he begins exhibiting his electrical abilities, actually knocking Bumblebee back and leaving him in a paralysis-like state like it would be a Monster Hunter. So this is where he simply grabs Bumblebee with his wing claws and begins to straight up maul him, and I mean viciously maul him. However, this is where RC phases right through him and simply, well, gets Bumblebee away from him. And this is where RC is shown to be wearing, quite obviously, the phase shifter, using Bumblebee's moment of distraction to go ahead and grab it, and then utilizing it to save him. And so this is where RC manages to actually hit Aelos and actually sends him tumbling back into the hole he came out of, or the hole that he dug the relic out. And this is where RC tries to contact Ratchet for a ground bridge, but this is where Aelos' tail shoots out the rubble and impales RC right in the stomach, just barely missing her spark, leaving her on the ground, stunned and paralyzed. And so Aelos utilizes this opportunity to simply grab the phase shifter and simply tells the Autobots they're going to need a lot more ferocity to deal with him. Matter of fact, how about you guys go ahead and run back to that little base you call home and never, and I mean never, come back here again. And so Aelos not only flies out, but flies into the horizon, kind of just bursting through the street, and everyone just kind of sees a whole giant flying wyvern, but he disappears. And so this is where we head back to, we go to the Toxin mission, or Toxicity, and Bulkhead is with Tiger Rex and Seragios. And so they're both looking confused as, what the heck is that, you know, like, what is that? And this is where Bulkhead simply explains that this is Toxin, a very volatile and dangerous energon that simply poisons anyone who's around it. And so Seragios is like, okay, that's very simple. I'll carry it back to the volcano or the top of the volcano and just disrupt it right there. And this is where we actually see Glavenus appear, and he states, I cannot allow that. And this is where Tiger Rex looks at him and simply states, finally, someone to fight. I've been getting bored on this mission ever since, and leaps at Tiger Rex. And this is where Tiger Rex actually unveils his blazing tail, and well, yeah, he tries to slash at Tiger Rex, but Tiger Rex leaps over it and pounces right on him, biting into his neck. This then gets the two into a tug of war, where Glavenus manages to eventually get Tiger Rex off of him and swings that tail at him, just straight up scraping or slashing Tiger Rex in the face. But Tiger Rex simply laughs at it and use a sonic roar to blow Glavenus back and blows him onto his side. This allows Seragios to obviously grab the relic and simply bolt to the top of the volcano. And before Glavenus can shoot him down with a fireball, Bulkhead comes from the top rope and slams two wrecking balls into his face. And so this is where they kind of hit Glavenus back and forth, until he actually utilizes the moment where Tiger Rex knocks him and utilizes this moment, to clamp his jaws around Bulkhead's shoulder, lift him up, and slam him on the ground repeatedly over and over and over again, causing him a massive amount of damage. However, Tiger Rex utilizes the opportunity to get its jaws around Glavenus' throat and pushes him back, and then eventually towards the edge of the volcano, where Bulkhead manages to get up and actually leaps at Glavenus, socking him with his wrecking ball and sending him tumbling down the mountain. They both are exhausted, and well, while Glavenus does have, Tiger Rex does have this slash mark on his face, Bulkhead is looking worse for wear, having bite marks, and well, is just battered and bruised mainly. Luckily, he's you know, not too damaged, I would definitely say. But again, it doesn't help that, you know, they kind of just had to go through that. But before they could really leave, Saragios does come down stating that he did do dispose of the toxin. And Boke's like, okay, whew, let's get out of here. And Bulkhead collapses to the ground from the damage, with Saragios catching him and stating that, hang on, big guy, we'll get you back to base in no time. And this is where Tiger X simply, you know, calls for a ground bitch and states that Bulkhead's going to be needing immediate repairs ASAP. And this is where Celtis simply states, yeah, he's not going to be the only one needing that. We then head to the Arctic, where Optimus is actually surveying the area. However, this is where someone bursts from underneath the ice, and that is Legiacris, who actually partner up with Optimus for this mission, into which Legiacris states that he didn't find anything on the bottom of the ocean floor, so it may be at that human facility. However, as they get there, they actually spot dead humans on the ground. Some of them frozen, some of them simply charred and burnt up, and this is where they actually see Starscream with the Apex armor alongside Gammoth. And Optimus, it looks in absolute horror at the scene, while Legiacris is focused on the fight. And this is where Starscream simply states, Gammoth, attack. And well, Gammoth goes on to actually charge at both Legiacris and Optimus Prime, who both move out of the way and actually go to Gammoth's sides, where Legiacris starts off with an electrical blast, while Optimus does go ahead to rush at Starscream. And well, Starscream and Optimus does play out, but let's talk about Gammoth versus Legiacris. Gammoth is just much stronger. She's stronger, more durable, and bulldozes through a lot of Legiacris' attacks. And Legiacris tries everything, burrowing beneath the ice to try and offset her footing, but she's at home here. It's her natural element almost, as she even utilizes the ice itself to blow Legiacris out of the water. Optimus, seeing that Legiacris is struggling, actually abandons the fight with Starscream and lays massive amounts of fire upon Gammoth. But he actually sees that she's not being affected by this. And well, this is where Optimus Prime gets snatched up by his neck by Gammoth using her Arctic tusk or her Arctic trunk right now. And he let's just say the thrashing is on the same level as Hulk and Loki. And Legiacris utilizes this opportunity to tunnel beneath the ice and come beneath Gammoth with almost like a volt tackle, if you will. And this sends Gammoth sprawling right at Starscream's side, but she manages to recover. However, Optimus is looking vastly worse for wear, and Legiacris picks him up, puts him on his back, and simply just, hightails it out of there, with Gammoth simply roaring triumphantly as she just took on 2 of the Autobots, while Starscream just maliciously laughs in the background and simply states, now all the cards are in my favor, and I shall rule with an iron and beastly fist. And this is where we would pan over to, well, the final mission, that being the Renaissance Cannon. And Rathalos is flying high above the mountains, trying to locate it, actually just looking around and everything. Keep in mind with Wheeljack not being here, as that is kind of just placed on hold for right now, Rathalos is doing this by himself. And this is where he spots Mizutune actually digging for the relic. And Rathalos goes, halt, identify yourself. And this is where Mizutune simply looks at him and kind of just smiles, saying that he was hoping someone would come here. And well, this is where we get Rathalos versus Mizutune. Kind of wish Wildhead did this, but hey, it is what it is. And Rathalos utilizes his fire to actually try and test out Mizutune. However, this proves to be a very bad thing, as he simply looks to the side of him and a bubble is around him. Then another, and then another. And then as if this were, kind of a Dragon Ball moment, this is where the bubbles kind of collapse on Rathalos like a good old Hell Zone grenade. And Mizutune utilizes this opportunity to not only get the Renaissance Blaster, but to use it on Rathalos. And so Rathalos has no other choice but to transform and utilizing his charge blades shield apart. And this is where it does manage to try and push it back the best that he can, but it's not enough. And unfortunately, Mizutune claims the relic and leads through a space bridge. With Rathalos Prime cursing himself for how he could have lost something that simple and that quick. And now he heads back to the Autobot base with a, I guess you could say, more or less defeated look on himself. And this is where we would head back to the Harbinger, where each of the Fated Four actually arrive. And despite Glavenus' failure, he's actually quite proud of him, saying that damaging and crippling one of the Autobots may only be temporary, but it is a good start. As he simply states, now they can work, or now they have much more work to do. Now, this is where the episode Loose Cannons is actually going to take place. And we would actually head to Cybertron. I know, kind of a change up from Earth, but why am I having that happen? Well, believe it or not, I'm actually going to say simply because of the vicinity and what I need to happen. So we would actually see Wheeljack actually crash landing on the planet with his ship and Dreadwing. Both of them pretty much obviously, shooting it out. Dreadwing using the damaged remains of his ship and stuff as cover. And so they pretty much shoot each other back and forth while they're in the city of Iacon. However, this gets spotted by 5 other figures. And lo and behold, it's the Dinobots. And this is where they all kind of look at this a bit strangely. They don't know who Wheeljack is, but they also know that he's fighting a Decepticon. And to which Grimlock simply states, a Decepticon. And an Autobot, apparently. How interesting. To which Swoop says, we have been looking for Shockwave for quite some time. Maybe this Decepticon came back to Cybertron to actually help him. To which Slug simply does state, that is actually a pretty good observation. Maybe we should capture him and interrogate him. And then maybe have this Autobot over here help us with that. And so he asks Grimlock, what's the deal? Or what's the command? And well, Grimlock simply tells the Dinobots to descend, and they quickly surround Dreadwing, with Dreadwing giving them a look on like, yeah, he's cooked. There's no other way about it. But this is where we head back to the Autobot base, and everything's kind of on, I guess you could say, kind of in like panic mode here, especially with the rest of them. As well, Rathalos Prime just returned, and he sees Seragios, Tigerex, and Legiocris helping out Celtis, and he asks them what's going on. And this is where Celtis simply moves aside and shows the other Autobots being damaged. And this is where he looks like, what the heck? What happened? And this is where Ratchet actually explains that apparently the Autobots also encountered, or apparently everyone as well, has also encountered another Cybertronian knight or somewhat beast here. However, he does have an alternative. The Forge of Solus Prime. And so this is where the Knights are actually taking a step back, all in their robot modes, mind you. And well, the Forge of Solus Prime is placed on Optimus, and this is where it glows, resonating with all the other Autobots, and then it goes into a loud boom, sending a blue energy wave coursing through all 5 of the Autobots. And so a huge glow not only consumes the base, but consumes Optimus, Bumblebee, Bulkhead, RC, and Ratchet. And well, an upgrade is an understatement for what they get, as the Knights simply look on and they see the Autobots upgraded more than they ever been, with Bulkhead and Ratchet basically looking at themselves and stating that this is new. Bumblebee is now able to speak, and RC feels better than she's ever been before. And this is where Rathalos Primal simply walks over and asks them, how is he there? How are they, feeling? And Bumblebee, excited to have his voice back, states, oh my god, guys, there are so many things I wanted to say, but right now, these upgrades feel wonderful. And this is where Ratchet simply states, wait, how did he even get an upgrade? He wasn't even injured. To which Bulkhead says, well, I guess the Forge may have just chosen you to get one as well. At least now you'll be more combat orientated. To which he slaps Bulkhead in the back of his head, saying he's always been combat orientated. And RC simply states she feels far more dangerous than what she was before. However, this is where Seragios asks, wait a minute, where's the Prime? And so everyone looks around, and then this is where they hear a roar, and all look to the ceiling to see a Teostra. And this is where they all look like, When the heck did that get here? However, this is where it transforms and lands in front of them. And this is where Optimus simply states, Autobots, we are going to apprehend Starscream and take down this fated four once and for all. And that's where we're going to leave it off here, you guys. Let me know what you guys think about this new upgrade for Optimus instead of his 2.0 form. And what's going to happen with the Dinobots and Wheeljack on Cybertron along with Dreadwing? Where is Shockwave and how does he play a part in all this? But hey, that's going to be all today, you guys.